Sharpen your blades and fix your combat chain because today we're deep diving into one of the most iconic heroes in Flesh and Blood history, Ira. You thought you knew what Ira was about? Simple, efficient, clean value swings? Well, what if I told you Ira just got herself a brand new toolkit and it's even more ninja? On this episode of Tunic Counter Gamers, we're slicing through the old playbook and showing you how the Ira Armory Deck sharpens her strategy with new toys, better synergy, and a whole lot more vengeance. We'll break down what Ira traditionally wants to do, what's changing with this Armory build, and whether we're finally seeing a deck that makes cards like Whirling Mist Blossom an actual threat instead of a meme. But before we deep dive into Ira Armory Deck, what did we learn since last week, guys?
Well, I guess before we dive into that, hi, I'm Ning.
Oh yeah, I always forget the introductions. I'm Will.
I'm Evan.
Yeah, nice to meet you all for the very first time.
Very first time.
I honestly think that, I just go right into it because doesn't our people know us?
At this point, you have
also,
15 other episodes to look at.
Yeah, and I think about 5 of them I forgot to introduce ourselves.
That's right.
So thank you, Ning.
Yeah, no problem.
Glad to have you back.
Yeah, so I don't know. I played Vincent for the first time officially in an armory, and I technically 3-0'd. It was really a 2 with a bye, but it's still 3-0.
Bye allocated is an opponent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I played against. My first game was a team kill against Trevor. He was playing on Puffin, and then I played against the Gravy Bones after that. It was very fun. I think I mostly won because people were still learning their characters and working out the kinks because they're all so new, or the heroes are. But overall, yeah, Vincent's pretty fun. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed playing it, doing the whole banishing, trying to figure out the number of room chants and how to make everything work. So yeah, it was a good time. Would play more.
Yeah.
It is a very Ning style of play. That's sort of like one big attack with some reactions on occasion.
Mm-hmm,
It's Azuri-esque, some might say.
I do enjoy it.
On my side, I joined Ning in the 3-0 club.
Oh, nice.
Unfortunately, we're not going to talk too much about it, but they did reveal Super Slam, the next new draft set. Mm-hmm. And legitimately, they revealed it like half an hour before the armory started. Mm-hmm. And I saw the new Goldmane hero, Lyath Goldmane. And I said, I love him so much. And because I was so excited for him, I had to bring his half-brother, cousin half removed.
You can just say his big brother.
His big brother. I had to bring his big brother Victor to the armory. So I built it super quickly, went to the armory, and I 3-0'd. It was a lot of fun. The new Fabled is quite the broken card in Victor, and
the new Fable from Haze.
Yeah, you pitch and make it gold, and Victor is so helpful. Yeah,
we were on the topic of Super Slam, so I thought he was like the new Fable. I was like, oh wow, you already know what's happening.
Yeah,
it's a wrestling belt.
James White, big fan of the show, was like,
that's right.
He gave me the new Fabled.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not true. He's a big fan of the show, I'm sure of it, if he watched us right.
So shout out to you, James, for doing that for
me. We're not spoiling any of the new cards, I guarantee you that. Oh, yeah. I went 1-2 in the armory, so I couldn't hold the 3-0. I mean,
one time I do it.
I know.
I'm just sucking up all the luck.
Well, it's like ever since Ning came back, I'm not maintaining my positive rate, unfortunately. But there is growing pains with that. Prism's hard, and once people figure out the Prism matchup, it gets a lot harder for Prism players. That's where the nuances of that hero really comes into play. I also fought one of her worst matchups, which is Dio-IO, and that's a tough one. It's because I don't know if I try to block them out and try to fatigue the Dio, or if I try to go aggro and try to swing as much as I can over the top. It's a matchup experience I don't have a lot of familiarity with, and the Dio players do have a lot of matchup experience with Prism. So I'm already behind the 8 ball on that. So Prism's fun. I mean, I don't regret playing her. She's always a blast to kind of play and to try to figure out. And I've learned new tricks with her. Like we have a guy coming down from New York, Ruben. He's Jeremy's friend, a top 8 battle hardened winner. Actually, he placed
He's the battle hardened winner.
Yeah, he is a battle hardened winner. He's not even top 8, or he's winner.
If you guys have watched the episode with Paul in it, he's he and Paul are like twins.
Very true. Yeah, so Ruben was giving me a few pointers on a few like things that I could do to really like enhance the Prism play, like some of the tricks that you really wouldn't pick up unless you've seen it played before and it's past the LS loop. Like, hey, you could grab, you know, Figment Ravages to pop your own ward when they target the angel and it stops their turn dead in the tracks, you know, so things like that. It's really a cool play. But yeah, I might switch over to Marlin starting this Sunday. I got all the cards in finally, and I'm dying to play a pirate hero. I started out on Gravy, but I retired him a little bit earlier because there's so many other Gravy bonus players right there. So Marlin's not really popular right now. Where currently we have 2 other Prism players, so you know I just like to get a little variety in the armory. So I might go ahead and do that. But you know, I also learned one other thing. I learned that you know people pilot my decks better than I do. Ain't that right, Ning?
I don't know if it's better. I think, you know, you just made such a good deck.
I never went 3-0 with my damn Vincent deck, dude.
Oh, that was Will's Vincent.
It's it's Will's Vincent.
Yeah, but and he did it too. One with my Fang deck, and like everyone's saying, "Oh, you play Pistolos," or even with my Vincent deck, I get so much crap for some of the stuff I put in there to make it more like red line, streamlined, and just like one big attack with a lot of the rune chance, and it works, but it's not your typical Vincent deck once you figure out the trick of how to beat it. But I don't know. So Ning, I'm glad that in the right hands, these tools are actually quite deadly. So, anyways,
yeah, it's a fun deck. It's a fun deck. I think if I didn't get into Uzuri back in the day, Vincent probably would have been the next one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even when I was playing it, and you weren't playing Vincent at all, it was one of those things where you were telling me how to play my deck better than me because I just didn't understand the intricacies of it. And you know, I think Evan said it right. Like, truly, that deck does kind of mirror your play style. So,
sure. Maybe I just need to switch over to that. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, it's always there for you. So let me know. But all right, so that was what we learned since last week. So let's talk about Ira. Ira's Armory deck is coming out. You know, if you guys are just watching this when it launches, it's next week on July 11th.
11th, I think. Yeah.
And so this is a week before, but this is going to be evergreen content. Let's say you're just interested in the Ira Armory deck, or you want to replicate it and build it. I think you guys should listen to this. Give us your comments down below of what you think about our feedback. I know, Evan, you have a lot of experience with Ira previously to the Armory deck, and I know I'm always interested in any Armory deck that comes out because I really love those products. Ning, you're Ninja adjacent, aren't you?
Ninja adjacent, yeah.
Yeah, I do love Ira quite a lot. She first got CC Hero last year. I was very excited and played quite a lot of her.
So, Ira, what does she want to do? What's she looking to do in the game plan, Evan?
So I guess maybe it might be helpful if we look at her hero card real quick.
Definitely do that.
But Ira, yeah, so she originally released a long time ago as sort of the welcome deck, and it was a blitz hero. And she has the ability, the second attack every turn gets +1. And for the longest time, this ability was seen as just broken. You could never have Ira in CC. She'd break the game. But since she's released, the game has gotten a lot more powerful. And so because of that, the devs thought, okay, it's cool to release Ira into the current meta. They were correct. Ira is a very powerful hero, though currently not quite like a top tier hero, but still a well-liked and powerful hero. She has sort of, at the moment, 2 main ways to play her. You can sort of play her as like a mid-range deck, or you can sort of play her as sort of a hardcore aggro deck, and both are viable. Though, strangely enough, Ira's main weapon that she uses in CC is the harmonized kodachi, which is Katsu's signature weapon. And the harmonized kodachi, they're very similar to Ira's main weapon, but they are one-handed. So yeah, this is it. You pay a resource, you swing for 1 with go again. Though to do so, you need to have pitched a 0-cost card, which for a ninja is not that difficult to do. So the sort of playline of kodachi for 1, kodachi for 2 with Ira's ability, and then swing a 1 for 5. That is sort of the bread and butter playline that Ira has.
Mm-hmm. And I know even with like in Ira's signature weapon Edge of Autumn, this has been out for a very long time. It did not come out with the Armory deck. This has been around, but people just never played this because it's one resource for one attack. It doesn't seem very strong compared to the harmonized Kodachis, right? Kind of like, I don't know, really below rate.
It's pretty good. It's like if the harmonized kodachi didn't exist, this would, I feel, be the weapon that Ira went to.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, because harmonized kodachi is just so much better, for the longest time, there was no reason to run Edge of Autumn. Until today, of course.
What? You're telling me there's a reason to ride Edge of Autumn? I'm so excited.
Whoa.
Crazy.
Yeah.
All
So
right,
similar to if people saw the Max Armory deck giving
Mhm.
Max a bunch of reasons to run his wrench, they did the same for Ira. So they put the Edge of Autumn, which is seen as the weaker weapon compared to the Kodachis, in the
Mhm.
Armory deck, but they have given a lot of synergies to the Edge of Autumn. So
Yeah.
we'll go through the synergies right now and see if it's enough to make Edge of Autumn a good
Sure.
card.
And I would like to say one thing. On her hero ability, this seems like such a simple ability. Your second attack each turn gets +1 power. But man, like the shenanigans you get up to with this text alone is so in depth and broad that it really, like, you wouldn't think it's so powerful. It's only like 1 point of value over the course of a turn. But man, does it suck sometimes to get hit with this. That 1 point of value makes a lot of difference, and it does stack up so much more, especially with some of the ninja reactions that we're going to talk about too.
Yeah, I
But
mean 6 to 8 turns later, that's 6 to 8 points of value,
Damn it.
you know?
yeah.
Like that's insane over the course of a long game.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we're going to do about the Armory deck first is we're going to go ahead and cover the new cards, starting with her equipment suite, and then we'll go ahead and touch on a lot of the new cards, and then give our initial thoughts on it. Does that sound good,
Yep.
guys?
Sounds good.
All right.
Let's do it.
Ning, do you want to read this one first for all our viewers?
Sure. So the first item, or the first card, new card, is Iris of the Blossom. It is a ninja equipment headpiece. It has an instant ability where if you tap your hero and you discard a card, you can search your deck for a Whirling Mist Blossom, banish it, then shuffle. And you may play it this turn, and you can only activate this if you have hit this turn. And it can block 2 as a blade break.
And it's not tap your hero, it's tap Iris of the Blossom, the actual mask itself, correct?
Oh, true enough. You are correct. Tap the headpiece. Yep.
Right.
I suppose with Iris, what's the difference?
So I guess before we talk about how strong this card is, might want to look at the card it's referencing, which is
Yeah, the whirling.
the Ira
I know.
specialization.
Bottom
we
left.
we mentioned it in our intro how this used to be such a mean card for
Mhm.
a long time, because this has been out for a while too, but they reprinted it for the Ira Armory deck. And Evan, do you want to read this one?
Yeah, so this is Whirling Mist Blossom. It is an Ira specialization. It costs 1, swings for 2, and it blocks for 2. And it reads, when this hits, if it's the second or higher chain link in a row to hit, then you draw 2 cards. And it has go again. So the on-hit trigger is insanely strong. The reason why Will says it's a bit of a meme, and to be honest it is because if this doesn't hit, 1 resource, 2 swing for 2 damage is quite below rate, and it's a pretty easy card to block. Like, even aggro decks can very easily block this out. So
Mhm.
for the longest time it was pretty bad, though now that you have the ability to tutor for it, I guess the question is, does that make Whirling Mist Blossom better? And more importantly, if we go back to the helmet, does that make the helmet worth playing? I guess thoughts on this?
Well, what would you play, like, typically, what's typically played in the Ira deck now?
Yeah, so currently in Ira, they run the Mask of Momentum, which
Yeah.
is an extremely powerful legendary equipment. It also blocks for 2 with Blade Break, and it basically has the ability, if you hit 3 times in a row, then you get to draw a card.
Yeah.
So the standard idea, if you remember, I talked about you swing for 1 with Go Again with a Kodachi. You swing for 2 with Go Again with a second Kodachi. Then you swing for 5, let's say. And you can do all that off of a single blue card, right? And if all 3 hits, right, if your opponent says, I don't really care, I'm going to let all of this hit, then you get to draw a card, which is very powerful.
Yeah. And even if they block the first, let's say the first kodachi or the second kodachi, they don't know if you have reactions, but they're still giving you typically a 3 block, so that you're still getting value on that block because you're making them overblock your attacks anyways, and it's a weapon attack. Do you really care? Or do they hold a card for the last chain, the third chain, and risk it, right? And then sometimes you could force the Mask of Momentum trigger just by, pumping the attack over that. So it is kind of tricky to play. Also, even if you fully block this one out, that stops the trigger, right? Or can you swing a 4th time, get that hit, and then draw your card on that 4th time?
Yeah, it's just 3 in a row for the first time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you block the first attack and then the next 3 attacks hit, then you will draw off that 4th hit, as you sort of alluded to.
Yeah, so my thoughts on Iris of the Blossom. Ning, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
You can go first.
I think if you build around Iris of the Blossom, and it pretty much says that you could discard a random card that won't help you this turn, and then you could go ahead and get the Whirling Mist Blossom. So it really does let you set up a combo a lot easier, especially with some of the newer cards like Prismatic Leyline. That Whirling Mist Blossom on the second time is coming out a little bit higher, or you can even fish it out and wait until the 3rd or 4th chain, depending on how many Go-Gens you got. And as long as you have this card open, they don't really know what you're having. So let's say you're pushing your attack, and you have a direct, an arsenal, or another attack, and you want to get rid of your card that's not going to help you. You just choose to discard it and bring it out. There's also cards, and if you want to get kind of crazy and cooking in the kitchen, that has benefits for when you discard them from hand. And I'm not saying that we'll talk about that in depth here, but that's also a potential thing to look at when you're playing Iris.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how to feel about this card, mainly because to make this card fair, it's saying you have to discard a card. So you're essentially replacing the card, but it's not necessarily replacement because the card that you're discarding does not go back into your deck. Whereas with Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is essentially the same thing, where it blocks for 2, and then if you hit, you can look through your deck for an attack that has an attack power of 2 or less, and then you can play it. And that it is a one-time trigger, but it does not require you to throw away a card. So I think if you build a deck in such a way that you can run either of these two, to me, it feels like it may be better to run the Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, just because you can have an even wider turn as opposed to having to throw away a card that you're potentially trying to help go wide with, or even wider, to make your Misting Blossom actually hit.
Yeah, now do keep in mind, Nang, because Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is quite a strong card, and yeah, everything you said is true. Though you do have to destroy Mask of the Pouncing.
Right, right, and that's what I mean by it's only a one-time effect. Yeah,
because Iris of the Blossom you can do.
I guess you can also
as many
block
times,
too.
as you want, and then you can block for 2 with it.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think Iris is meant for, and you'll probably see as we continue along to look at this deck list, but they designed this deck to be more mid-range than aggro, right?
Yeah.
So I think for the deck, Iris of the Blossom is quite good. I don't think I would want Pouncing Lynx sort of in the deck like as it is now.
Yeah.
Though I could see you like designing the deck in a slightly different way and preferring Mask of the Pouncing Lynx.
I would say, if you keep with the theme of the deck, Iris of the Blossom does have good play because you could pull the Whirling Mist Blossom block for 2, like you were saying, Evan. But also, I don't know. I think Mask Momentum, you would draw the card for value, but it doesn't get the card you need. You don't know what card you're drawing off the top. Where Iris, you can selectively choose it. So it's like, okay, I'm setting up for my strike. It's very Ninja-esque in my mind as far as the theme goes. All right, I'm setting up this combo, and then I need the exact card I need to get over the top to draw 2 cards to continue on with my chain. And I kind of like that too. It's like you're choosing your, like your scalpel, your precision tool. All right, so that's my thought on Iris.
I think it's interesting though, because for this to work, you have to first hit with a card, right or no?
Yeah, hit with a weapon.
Yeah. You only if you. Oh yeah, I suppose that's the difference, right?
But I think the idea here, the way they want it to work, is you hit with your Edge of Autumn.
Yeah.
You tutor for your,
and you can just do it whenever during your combat.
Well, I think the best way they want you to do it is you play Whirling Mist Blossom on the second chain link, and then because of Ira, it'll be swinging for 3 instead of 2. And then, as Will said, if you have like a +1 attack reaction, you can get it over even if they block for 3. So I think that's the idea here is like Whirling Mist Blossom gets way better if you have attack reactions. There are quite a few attack reactions in this deck. So this is the way you tutor for it.
Yeah.
That being said, I do think this is a good budget equipment for new players. But I think if you're willing to spend a bit of money, and we'll talk about specific upgrades later on in the video, I do think this is meant to be a budget Mask of Momentum. Like the sort of finalized version of the list, the sort of most powerful version of Ira with Edge of Autumn, I feel, does not run Iris. It runs Mask of Momentum. Because that threat every single turn of forcing the card draw is just so much more potent, right? Like your opponent is required to interact with you.
So I also think, but the threat of having the Iris, like on the Autumn, the Edge of Autumn hit, right? You can always threaten Iris, right? And so I don't know. I feel like, Mask Momentum is probably the better helmet, hands down, right? Just value and threaten over time. But I could see, like, Evan, you're telling me, I know you have several Mask Momentum. Several? Maybe? Do you have one? It doesn't matter.
I own one, yeah.
Okay. But you're telling me you want to try Iris of the Blossom, just the first time you have it, just to see if it works, or are you going to already just shift it out, saying, I'm going to go to my mask? And this is just a side topic before we continue on to the next equipment.
I think already I'm taking it out.
Okay, interesting. Because I'm more of like, let me try it, because I kind of like that thought of getting the scalpel, that precision tool when I need it. So
now, granted, I could see it being worthwhile in, for instance, if you have like our meta, our local meta is very gravy infested. And
very good choice.
Very good choice of words. Yeah.
Very gravy. There's a lot of gravy, and if there's a lot of gravy, the Whirling Mist Blossom is one of the strongest cards in the game at killing allies, because you sort of dodge your opponent's ability to block it, right? If you attack an ally with Whirling Mist Blossom, you will get the on hit.
And it's a hit, you're 100% right.
So if you're playing against a lot of gravies, I could see you having Iris as a sideboard card in order to kill allies and draw cards. I think that is a pretty helpful thing. Though, once again, the issue becomes, you know what else allows you to draw cards? Mask of Momentum. So maybe not.
Fair. Okay.
Yeah, but it lets you draw 2 cards.
Yeah.
2 cards is pretty nice, yeah.
Better than 1.
It is better than 1, yeah.
And we could talk about more of this later, especially after we play the deck, and we could talk about what we think about it later on. But yeah, so shall we continue on to Robot Autumn's Fall?
Yeah, sounds good.
Let's do it.
So this is a ninja equipment for the chest. When Edge Autumn you control hits, you may destroy this. If you do, gain 1 resource. It's Arcane Barrier 1. Important to note. And what's your guys' thoughts on this?
Once again, a bit of a sort of budget equipment. I think like tuned decks are going to want the card Fiendal Spring Tunic, though I do admit that card is a bit pricey.
So true.
So this is a good alternative. And not only that, but having Arcane Barrier 1 is actually quite a big deal. Like, legitimately, I think a Toon deck will probably not run this main board, but a Toon deck will actually have this in the sideboard, right? If you're facing off against Kano, for instance, you want Arcane Barrier, and this is so much better than an Arcane Barrier equipment that does not give you a resource, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, a bit of a budget alternative, but it is still a card you're happy to have, just for sort of some of the wizard matchups, like Kano, for instance.
Yeah, is there any other budget chest equipment that you would run in the ninja slot that's not Tunic? Or like any kind of general chest pieces where you could destroy or sacrifice to get the resource almost for less requirements in the Edge of Autumn hitting?
So I could see in the past, I have run as sort of a budget alternative. I've run Heart and Crossstrap before, and Heart and Crossstrap allows you to play 2-cost cards for free, basically. So that's a very strong ability, and I could see you wanting that because currently, later down the line, we'll talk about Ira has some quite strong 2-cost attack actions. Do note this will break the chain, so some of them you have to be careful with. But this is quite a strong card, and I could see budget players preferring it over the chess piece that they've given you. But I think it's such a minor upgrade. I think the current chess is probably good enough.
Would the old knocker that just came out in High Seas not be used more than Heart and Crossstrap?
Old knocker is actually pretty good too because it's an instant ability.
So it doesn't break the chain, right?
Yeah. So to note, Ira cares quite a lot about the chain, and any non-attack actions will break the chain. Like Heart and Crossstrap would have broken the chain, and this not breaking the chain is actually a big deal. I could see you wanting this too. It also blocks one, although you don't get the one block
and the emergency. Yeah.
That being said, yeah, I kind of agree with you, Ning. I feel like if you are a budget player, I think this or Heart and Crossstrap. It kind of depends on how many 2-cost 6-power attacks you have in your sort of finalized list.
Yeah. I was thinking Old Knocker as well, as far as because it's tap your hero as an instant, destroy this, gain the resource. I didn't think about it not stopping the chain with doing it. It's just I wasn't even thinking along the lines of that. But just more like a less conditional, I don't have to have my Edge of Autumn hit. I could just get the one resource by destroying it. So that's great. Okay, so okconor Scarraps. Evan, do you want to read this one?
Oh boy, I'll try. So okconor Scarraps. As an attack reaction, you can tap this and banish an Edge of Autumn you control. And if you do, target ninja attack gains +1 power. And then if a card with the word Vengeance in its name has hit, you can return an Edge of Autumn from your banished zone back to the field. And it also has Blade Break too, which is quite a good blocking card. And this is a very, very strong piece of equipment. I think overall, this is the strongest card in the deck, full stop.
Wow. Big words, Evan. Big words.
Just being able to continuously, over and over again, give your ninja attacks +1 power is very, very insane. There is a major downside, and that is if your opponent blocks out your Vengeance attack, I should say, then you do not get your Edge of Autumn back. And that can cause some major issues. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Like this is the strongest card in the game, or in the deck in the game. But it is also, if your opponent plays around it, then it can kind of ruin your entire day.
But the thing is, it is a static ability where whenever you attack control with Vengeance's name hits, you equip the Edge of Autumn. So it's not just for the one turn you're triggering this. It could be the second, third, fourth turn later. You're just not without a sword until Vengeance card hits. Right?
But
Yeah, but the
Well,
problem with that is I don't think any of the vengeance cards that you would expect to have go again can get go again unless you attack with the Edge of Autumn first.
Yeah, because the vengeance cards all have combo, and they all need you to attack with an Edge of Autumn beforehand, basically. So all those cards are really bad without Edge of Autumn. So definitely be careful when you're using the attack reaction. Like, I legitimately think you should only use the attack reaction on a vengeance card, or late game if it'll kill your opponent. So those are the two scenarios, and when you use it on a card with vengeance, like, you need to be very sure that it will hit, right? You need to have other attack reactions to back it up, or you need to be playing against a hero where that just basically doesn't run defense reactions, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can always see that being scary. Also, just threatening your ninja attacks to have that +1 just based off the equipment seems pretty strong in itself. Like, it does make your whole Whirling Mist Blossom a little bit scarier, because if it's a second chain link or higher, it's already a 3, and then you're threatening a 4. So, you can also, if you know your opponent well enough to kind of read them, are they having the D-react on hand or in the arsenal, and then kind of base it off that too. So,
yeah, you can do some clean stuff like that. Another interesting thing to note is when you banish the Edge of Autumn and it returns, it's treated as a new card, right? So you can swing Edge of Autumn and then swing like a Vengeance card. Banish your Edge of Autumn, it returns. You can now swing with that new Edge of Autumn on the same turn. So you can basically make it into a kodachi, right? Like, you can swing with it twice, right? So yeah, this card is very strong. It is also very nerve-wracking, so definitely be careful. I guarantee I am going to lose games because I use this greedily. So
it's like a poor man's was that new pirate hook card.
Gold-plated.
Yeah, it's like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gold-baited hook, but instead of losing your arm piece, you just lose the game.
Yeah, I can see how, if you don't like, I can see how the ceiling on using this card and how to use this card could be really high. Or a lot of, I think, figuring out when to use that attack reaction to trigger it. And you're going to lose your edge on him so many times before you figure out. I feel like this is a ninja's scab skins. There, I said it, Evan. All right.
It's honestly a good comparison because it also blocks for 2, so it's a fantastic piece of equipment just in general.
Yeah.
Right?
But
so yeah, this is definitely like the best payoff to play Edge of Autumn. You just have to be very careful when you play it. But yeah, we can move on.
Let's go ahead and talk about our first Vengeance card, Enact Vengeance. Ning, you want to read this one?
Yeah. Enact Vengeance is a red card that costs 2, hits for 6, and blocks 3. So far, pretty on rate. As a combo, if the Edge of Autumn or a card with Vengeance in its name was the last attack this combat chain, when this hits a hero, destroy all cards in their arsenal. So it's like Command and Conquer at home for Ira or Ninja in general.
A second type of Command and Conquer too, right? Which we could talk about upgrades later, right? So
there are even ways where this is better than Command and Conquer, right? Because Command and Conquer does not work with the arm
ancestral
piece.
part, yeah.
So you can give this the +1 from the hand feast for sure.
Yeah. So
I mean,
simple turn cycle, of course, is you have 2 cards in hand. You have a blue card and this. You swing with the Edge of Autumn for 1. You swing with this for 7, so it's already a break point. That's destroying their arsenal. And if they block 7, then you can activate your arm piece and make it 8.
Oh man! So if I block with a 3 and react with a D-react on top,
they
making
can
it a 7, you telling me you could do your okconor scarraps and making it 8?
Yeah. So this is I think the best new card outside of okconor scarraps. This is a very strong card and a very good reason to play Edge of Autumn.
Yeah. Okay. And then it might not have natural go again, but there's ways of fixing that. Or most importantly, though, it could just be as you said, a powerful finisher. So.
Yeah, destroying arsenals is very good. Command and Conquer is literally Ira's best card. So having another copy of it is kind of
Pretty
insane.
nice. Yeah.
All right. We have Seek Vengeance. We have this in red and blue. It's a 0 cost. It is a ninja action attack. It's a 4 attack power, 3 block combo. If Edge of Autumn was the last attack this combat chain, this gets go again. Of course, the blue is a 2. All right.
Yeah.
So, all right. This seems pretty good. I mean, definitely above rate. I mean, the block value is really strong for a ninja action card. So, and I would see you're playing this if you're playing the Edge of Autumn line. So why wouldn't you? This is a mainstay.
0 for 4 go again is always good. Blocks for 3 is always good.
I'm seeing it as a 0 for 5 as well. Maybe potential 6 with the kind of scarraps, because if the second chain link, and even the blue is a 0 for 3 if it's the second chain link. So
yeah, 0 for 4, 3 block, go again is kind of insane. And
really
as you said, works with the arm piece. Like, this is very strong.
Man, so the other one we're going to talk about is Vengeance Never Rests. Now, Evan, you want to go ahead and read this one?
Yeah, so this is the final Vengeance card. So in total, there are 12 Vengeance cards. And Vengeance Never Rest is a blue 1 cost, 3 damage with 3 block. It's got combo. If Edge of Autumn is the last attack this combat chain, then this gains go again. And it also gains when this hits a hero, banish it, and you may play it again this turn, right?
Oof.
This is like what Devotion Never Dies.
Yeah, Devotion Never Dies, Double Strike, cards like that. And Devotion Never Dies is a pretty strong card. It would be way stronger if it were blue and it blocked 3. And that's what this is. Keep in mind, it's not a break point. It's only 3, but with Ira's ability, you can bring that up to 4. And with the Scar Wraps again, you can bring it up to 5. So this is a very hard card to block, and it has a very good reason to block.
And you can actually play it first cycle, and you don't hate seeing the second cycle if you go that way. You said earlier Ira's a mid-range deck. You might hit second cycle a lot of times too, depending on how the games are going. And this one, for a blue card going to second cycle, you're not upset seeing it.
Yeah, you're even happy playing it like first cycle. Like, this is that strong of a card that, like, if the turn lines up, sometimes you just play it. And, yeah, your opponent has to block it, or you're going to deal a lot of damage to them.
And then one of the other new cards is Legacy Ikaru.
At the bottom. It's at the bottom next to it. Just to
Ning.
So Legacy of Ikaru is a 0 cost blue card, and it's an attack reaction. Man, I love attack reactions. Ninja attack reaction, target ninja attack. So this works for both weapons and cards. Target ninja attack gets +1 attack, and when this hits, if Edge of Autumn was the last attack this combat chain, draw a card. So this is essentially a Mask of Momentum at home, which is pretty fun.
But this you only get to draw the card if the Edge of Autumn was the last card played, right?
Or not, sorry, not Mask of Momentum at home. Ancestral Empowerment at home. Yeah.
It is very similar to Ancestral. Do note it is blue. Ancestral is red.
It is, yeah.
So in some ways, I honestly think this is better.
Yeah.
Though granted,
it has to hit, right?
It has to hit, which, the +1 reaction speed will help with. And you also have to be playing Edge of Autumn, which so.
But it kind of goes to what you were saying, where this is where you play Edge of Autumn first. You play a second attack. You do an or the Ikaru to banish Edge of Autumn to swing it as the third link. Then you play this on top of that. So it's coming back in for 2 on the third chain link. And then whatever card you draw, it's a great combo setup piece, don't you think? Like, you don't have to play this when you first swing Edge of Autumn. You could, like, if you are
so you're kind of required to swing it after Edge of Autumn,
right?
If you want the card draw.
But that's what I'm saying. If you banish the card from, like,
use your hand wraps or scar wraps first to banish it, and then you poke with, you bring it back somehow, and then you swing again, and then you play another card to then,
So
I see what you're saying.
No,
I mean,
I
that's
definitely agree. I think, like I said, okconor scarraps is a very dicey card to be using because if your opponent
Mm.
has reaction, like defense reactions, that can
Mm.
cause issues. So having a lot of attack reactions to sort of, get over it, even if they have the D-react, I think is very huge. So
Yeah.
I like this card
Mhm.
quite a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Do note it also works with, as we were saying, the Iris of Blossom. So you grab the Whirling Mist Blade, you swing for 3, and then you can bring this over to 4. And now
And
on hit, you draw 3 cards. Whoa.
yeah.
Pretty
Pretty
fun.
good. And
Wow.
then I think there's one final new card. Well,
Mhm.
technically a new card, and that is Bittering Thorns Blue.
Now, Evan, you're gonna have to tell me about this. Why is everyone so excited about blue bittering thorns when they released the Armory Deck Ira and they were like, "Oh, it's blue bittering thorns." It's like, okay, but what am I looking
Is
at here?
everybody
Why is it?
excited? I thought I
Okay,
was the only excited person.
I thought there was multiple people that mentioned it, but maybe I just your excitement was so contagious, But tell me, why am I
I did
excited about this card?
scream. I screamed out loud. Trevor got scared. That's why he's not on this episode.
But he's
He
the
started
off counting his
screaming.
lubricates.
Oh no! Oh no!
Hi, Trevor. I hope you're watching this episode and hear this. Like, comment, and subscribe if you are. Anyway. So the history of Bittering Thorns is in the original welcome deck that LSS gave out for free to new players. They had yellow Bittering Thorns in it.
Hmm.
And that yellow Bittering Thorns was not a very good card. It's all very little play. Later on, they released Red Bittering Thorns, which is also in this product. And Red Bittering Thorns is a very, very strong card and has seen quite a lot of play. So finally, they finished the cycle. So this Armory deck gives us Blue Bittering Thorns, which I think is way less powerful than Red Bittering Thorns, but I do think it is powerful enough to see play. It's a 1-for-2 with Go Again, blocks for 2, and it has, if this hits, your next attack gets +1. 2 damage is a bit of an awkward number to block sometimes, right? Like sometimes your opponent has a hand of 3 blocks and they don't want to block inefficiently. So yeah, Blue Bittering Thorns, having blues that like can swing and do decent damage and also get blocks out of your opponent's hand, that's very valuable. And I think this card is quite powerful. And I'm excited for it.
The whole your next attack this turn gets +1 is nothing to sneeze at because Ira is all
Mhm.
about that incremental points of value added up. So even if, let's say you play this first, right? Would he ever consider that, then edge on him for 2? And then maybe even Whirling Mist Blossom for potential 2 on the Chain Ender with the potential of growing if he had the other, buff cards, reaction cards for it. So,
Yeah.
like,
So
there's
yeah,
different ways
this
you
is
could.
very strong.
Yeah.
It's, as I said, not as good as the red one, which the red one is also in this deck. And
Mhm.
do note, very good reprint. That card was getting a bit pricey,
Yeah.
so very happy to see that card in the
Mhm.
deck. But yeah, Blueberry Thorns we're pretty happy with.
Yeah. Funny thing is, I just traded for the Bittering Thorns too. I was like, that's okay. That's okay.
I didn't want to say anything because you were trading with Jose, and I like Jose, but I
Yeah.
kind of I saw it and I was like, oh no, I feel like they're gonna reprint this in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's funny.
Well, it's also, yeah, but Jose did need the final Command and Conquer. I don't mind giving. He's. I still got him on the what's that card? That's 6/3. If they don't have a block card, you choose and discard
If they don't have a
2.
block.
If they don't have a block symbol, you could choose and discard a card.
Oh, weakest link.
Oh,
The
weakest
weakest link.
link.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I got 2 of those for like $10 a piece from him, so I don't feel too bad about him getting me on Bitter Thorn.
Fair
Shout
enough.
Right. I mean, it was at the time worth $10. So, all right. So that's the new cards. Anything else we should talk about the current Armory deck? Like any of the other cards you see here that's pretty powerful, or something you just want to shout out and mention?
I just like
Shout
that
out the
they have
reprint of shout out the reprint of Syncglow. Yeah.
I really
Yeah,
like that they reprinted both of those defense reactions.
Yeah.
Yeah, this deck I think is basically the well, I think it's the best balanced deck of every Armory deck they've ever made. It does a little bit of everything, right? It's got D-reacts, it's got attack reactions, it's got go again, it's got really big cards with on hits, like bit of everything.
So,
So Sink
Evan,
Below, Flick Flank, those are great.
I gotta ask you about this give and take, right? I don't remember how many they give you in the Armory deck. Do you?
So they give you 2 copies of Give and Take and 1 copy of Energy Potion, and those are the only everything else is a 3 of.
Yeah.
Give and Take is a nice reprint, it's a
Mhm.
majestic, it's
Only
worth
in
a couple
Outsiders.
bucks. Only in Outsiders. I like the card quite a lot. Not in this deck, I don't. But
yeah, so it just seems a little clunky. I can see why they added it in, just so you could probably get like some of your combo cards back on top of your deck to draw them up for next turn. But my initial impression is this is something you wouldn't play after you start upgrading your Armory deck, correct?
yeah, I think keep it around. It's good trade fodder.
Yeah.
But Give and Take is definitely one of the first couple cards I'd cut, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
I assume what the original intent was: play something with go again, and then play this to have 4 go again, and you can bring back your vengeances to do more things. Mm-hmm.
No, I think like the deck is focused on mid range, right? And this card being an aggressive card that blocks for 3 looks pretty good. And that's probably the idea. But if you want to put aggressive cards in your deck, you should put aggressive cards in. Ira has so many 1-for-4 go again cards that I would rather be playing than a 1-for-3 go again. But that's a story we can talk about in a bit when we talk about potential upgrades. For now, I think value-wise, I'm happy with Give and Take being in the deck, but I think you should cut it immediately.
Okay. Yeah, value-wise, I agree with you. But let's talk about budget upgrades then.
Well, before we do that, can we talk about there were a couple other cards to note that I wanted to talk about in the deck.
Sure.
And that I think the big one we talked about the defense reactions. I think the big one is Razor Reflex. Yeah, we talked about how powerful sort of attack reactions are in this deck, and this is currently the biggest attack reaction that Ira has access to. Gives go again to cards, which can be pretty helpful. And yeah, I think this is a very important card.
I think this is also important in that scenario where you use Okara Scarraps, you throw away the Edge of Autumn, somebody blocks it out, suddenly you don't have your Edge of Autumn to give your vengeance cards go again. Using this, some 0-for-4 or another vengeance card that's not the 2-cost one, I think is very helpful to kind of keep it going. Because also, if you look at it, right, I think Seek Vengeance is the 0-for-4. You could play that. Let's just say they magically block that out. You can still, So let's say the red attack, right? So it's a 0-for-4. It doesn't have it doesn't naturally have go again, but you could use your Razor Reflex to bump it up to a 7 and then give it go again or something like that.
Yeah, now you have your Edge of Autumn back, and you still have an action point. So I agree, that's pretty helpful.
You can Snapdragons it if it doesn't actually go through. Use the remaining 2 resources to hit enact vengeance, and then it activates everything too.
So
that's true.
Would you keep the Snatch in, right? 0 cost 4 attack when this hits draw a card. No natural go again. But with the Razor Reflex, would you keep the Snatch in, or is that too clunky is that too cute for the Ira's game plan, or would you like shrink Snatch down to a 1 of or 2 of, or just take it out altogether? Because there's other.
So it kind of depends on what you want to be doing with Ira. To note, once again, I like Snatch being reprinted. I think it is a staple in so many aggro decks, but it is an aggro card. And as I sort of mentioned, Ira can be built in 2 separate ways. It can be built more as an aggressive deck and more as a mid-range deck. And I think as the mid-range version, you probably get rid of Snatch. But in the more aggressive version, you might think about keeping it.
Okay. What else? What other cards did you want to talk about as far as the Ira deck goes before we talk about upgrades?
I think that's about it overall. Once again, Razor Reflex is very good with Whirling Mist Blossom. I know that's a card you like quite a lot, Will. So
I do now.
Razor Reflex is one of my most favorite attack reactions. Yeah. Like even in my Azuri deck, I would always do like at least the one of, and then people, and then I'll attack with either dagger, and then I'll win a game from that, or like I'll do Leave No Witness, and then I'll do a surprise Razor Reflex, and people are like, "What is that card doing here?" And it's a great surprise card for sure.
And I don't know if you mentioned the Flick Flack, and for those that aren't familiar with this, it's a ninja defense reaction for 0 cost. Blocks 4 naturally, but the next card you defend with this turn that's got a card with combo, it gets +2. So all those 3 blocks that we mentioned, the vengeance lines. I mean, if you have to block with it, it's better to block for 5 than anything else. So you get some good value with the Flick Flack as well.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because Flick Flag is one of my favorite cards in Ira, and it is like quintessential. Like it is part of the reason why like mid-range defensive Ira works. And it might be important for some of the upgrades I have in mind.
Okay.
But I think overall, before we begin with upgrades, I think let's talk like what do we think of the deck before upgrades, I guess. I think that's kind of important. Because I think I alluded to it, but I think this is currently in my opinion anyway, the strongest armory deck like out of the box that they have ever released. Like I think this is the best balance. It's got good defense, good offense overall, and good equipments. Like I think it is the best balance, and it is by far the strongest, without a doubt, that they've ever released.
I'll tell you now, like KO Armory deck was one of my favorites. Jarl was a really good deck. I gotta say, the Ira deck, this deck, I could see people playing at Armory against more tuned decks and actually pulling out a win. Right?
Yes.
Would it be easy? No. Right? But I think you can do it, and I think in fact, in a skilled Iris player's hand. Right, I think they know exactly what they need to do to win with this deck, and I think it wouldn't be surprised if they won with this deck.
Do note, I legitimately believe this deck out of the box beats Gravy. Whirling Mist Blossom is a hell of a card against allies.
Yeah.
But
I potentially speaking, like if this is the way they're taking armory decks in the future, I'm super excited because it really does flesh out a whole nother game plan for Ira, and it introduces such new cards that really does say, oh, it works. This deck works with the Vengeance line with Edge of Autumn, and I know we were like I was a little hesitant on how can they make Edge of Autumn better than Kodachi's, but with what I'm seeing here, I could definitely see I could see it, and I'm excited about this. I think a lot of people are.
Now, do note, and this, see, once again, it's me, contradicting myself. I do think out of the box, this deck is the strongest armory deck we've seen, though this deck is very tough to sort of, like the line from the armory deck to sort of a fully tuned competitive Ira list, like, I'm not 100% sure about that, right? Current Ira decks are running the Kodachis, and a lot of the strongest cards that the Kodachi deck are using are not here, right? Like, all the Vengeance cards here are very bad if you don't have Edge of Autumn.
Yep.
Like the Scarrap, which I said is such a strong card. Once again, terrible with Kodachis, right? So because of that, I'm less sure about sort of the upgrade path to like a more traditional Ira. Some decks like KO, for instance, if you got the Armory deck, going from that to sort of a fully tuned KO deck, it was like there was a very clear path for that.
Yeah. Add Blood Rush Bellows and you're competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a simplistic way of viewing it, but yeah.
I mean, there were a couple other steps, but it was like there were a couple small changes you had to make it competitive. This one will require more work and to be honest, I do believe Kodachis for the more competitive scene. I think Kodachis are the way to go. Though I think Edge of Autumn is powerful enough that I think it's worth playing, and you can have fun with a semi-competitive Edge of Autumn list locally, and it will do quite well. So
I think, I can see what you're saying, because Kodachi is the tried and true method. Ira's using Kodachi. There's a lot of attacks that kind of synergize with the Kodachi. But I don't know, man. Like, I feel like the Vengeance line, Edge of Autumn, Kana Scarraps, I think it has enough potential where as soon as someone figures out the correct cards that fit in outside of the Vengeance line itself to kind of really enhance it, like Whirling Mist Blossom and everything else, I can really see that this deck, does something better than the Kodachi deck does. And what that is, I draw a lot more cards than the Kodachi deck would, even with Magical Momentum. I just see it potentially going maybe a little bit wider. I don't know. Like, Ning, what's your thoughts on this?
I feel like so we've talked about how good or rather the game plan for the typical Ira deck is, right? Which is Kodachi for 1, Kodachi for 2, 1 for 5. But then you're able to block with 2 cards, and then you keep poking like that, and eventually you whittle them down. With this one, I think with you only being able to poke with the sword once, and then maybe you have to all your combo lines require the Edge of Autumn or requires the Vengeance. I feel like it feels a little bit more streamlined. I don't know how that kind of translates though, without playing more Ira, playing against Ira. But it does feel like with the Okkonor Scar wraps, the fear of losing your Edge of Autumn is a lot scarier. And therefore it feels like you may need to have a few more attack reactions to try to guarantee to get your sword back. And
yeah, that's fair.
To be fair, that's probably the kind of play that I would prefer more so anyway. But
He's an assassin player, everyone.
I do enjoy my reactions.
But I hope you're right, Will. I hope I'm just being
No,
a grumpy old
cynical
man.
old man.
Cynical old man. I say I don't like the new thing. Give me Kodachis back. No, I'm kidding. I do. I love the way these cards play, and I hope they're good. I'm gonna definitely try it out.
Definitely like that LSS is giving you different kinds of decks or different kinds of lines that you can go for. And
they did the same thing with the Max Armory deck. And that went over very poorly.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they did it properly this time.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is an outward success overall.
I agree. And Evan, I don't think you're a naysayer. I think you're more of a realist, right? Like, that once you get your competitive Ira decks locked in, this is such a different game plan from what you normally would play with an Ira deck. It's not going to feel, as
well, there are a bunch of cards. Like, I think some of the strongest Ira cards that like Ira normally run, you're just not allowed to run with Edge of Autumn. Like, for instance, Dual Threat, I think, is the quintessential Ira card. You can't run Dual Threat in an Edge of Autumn deck, unfortunately. Yeah, so Dual Threat, if we can bring it up, it's essentially a 0 for 6 go again yellow card. So you swing with a Kodachi, you swing with a go again attack, and then your second Kodachi gets +3, and then some other second attack action gets +3.
Well, Evan, I hear you, but why do you have to stick with Dual Threat when you got
Prismatic Leyline? Also does not work with Edge of Autumn.
Oh, I think it does a lot better than
Edge of Autumn is not a blue card.
No. I mean, yes, the Edge of Autumn, but it works better with the deck overall, right? Anyways, we'll talk about the upgrades. We'll keep on with your Dual Threat, and then we'll go with our.
It's cards like Cut Through. These are strong cards that you're just not allowed to run with Edge of Autumn. That being said, the Vengeance cards are quite powerful, so I can see, those being good replacements.
Yeah.
But we've talked about the deck long enough. Let's get on to the upgrades. What do we think we can add to the deck to make it better tuned?
I mean, my first instinct.
That's a very good instinct, and I think we all agree with that.
Yeah.
On screen right now for those listeners is Ancestral Empowerment. It's a red ninja attack reaction for 0 cost. Target ninja attack action card gains +1 power. Draw a card. I mean,
blocks 3.
Is this the first upgrade you make?
Probably not the first for me, but that's because I don't own any copies of it.
What?
Oh, that's interesting.
People at Armories, maybe I'm exposing myself. People at Armories keep saying like, "Oh, I lose if you have Ancestral. Maybe I should overblock." And I'm like, "Yep." And then
Well,
in my
we
mind, I think to myself, little
we
do
gotta
they know
talk
it. But I'm
about
in-
ancestral empowerment and ancestral harmony, both of which I would think about including in some form or fashion if you're playing the Edge of Autumn line.
I think I would not agree with the Ancestral Harmony, and that's because currently the Edge of Autumn line, so all the Vengeance cards, there are only 12 of them, which is a fifth of your deck.
1 out of 5 cards.
So this is the odds of getting one of the Vengeance cards is very low. So I'm not a big fan of an Ancestral
But
Harmony.
wasn't there a card where you could put it back on top of your deck? I'm just saying, like I know you said
You're
you.
thinking of a Katsu card.
No. What's the majestic they included in the armory deck? I already forgot the name. That you said take out.
Give and take.
Give and
Oh,
take.
give and take. Oh my god.
I'm just saying.
Will, you're cooking too hard.
That's
I'm just saying.
that means you have to sit on it for a long time, and that means your opponent needs to block with an action card.
Look. Okay,
Yeah,
so
there's no on-hit effect.
Okay, the Tunic Counter Gamers have spoken. Obviously, Ancestral Harmony, no, but Ancestral Empowerment, yes.
Yeah, we talked about how strong attack reactions are.
And I like this card mainly because it replaces itself and gets a +1. And generally speaking, ninja cards like to go again or somehow get go again. So it helps extend things and push things over the top in case there is some sort of hit effect you're trying to go for.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think this one's very good. I
And
think other cards.
We're talking about Ancestral Empowerment, not Harmony. Just to clear it. Empowerment, Harmony. All right, Evan, go ahead.
I think some other blue cards to note are, I kind of like adding more blue combo cards. So, for instance, like blue Flusterfist, I could see about adding. And a big reason for that is because I talked about how strong I think Flick Flack is, and the only combo cards currently in the deck are the 12 Ancestral cards, which, if you want to get Flick Flack to give the +3 block consistently, you're going to need a couple more. Unfortunately, combo cards are very bad without the combo, but if it's a blue block 3, you're very happy to just, it's a blue pitch card, it blocks 3. Sometimes with Flick Flack, it blocks for 5. I think this is a good upgrade. So cards like Flusterfist, other cards similar to that, just any sort of blue block 3 combo card, I think might be a worthwhile include over some of the other blues.
Like what would you take out? Like the Torrent, Tempo, and Soul Beat Strike?
Yeah, I probably would take out those, but before that, I would probably take out Energy Potion.
Energy Potion.
Yeah, they added an Energy Potion. I don't know why they did that.
So you can have an on-demand enact vengeance. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it was a little weird. I was wondering why they included the Energy Potion. To me, that was the only thing that I didn't really see that made sense. But maybe they're just trying to be cute and get rid of them. I don't know.
Any big upgrades you're thinking about?
Who, me? Sorry, I sneezed, so I didn't hear the call out. I personally have not looked into or thought about this enough to know of any or any upgrades that's budget friendly. Rather, obviously you have those the big 2-for-6s, right? Command and Conquer, which is always good.
Well, how about things like that are budget friendly? Let's say things like Humble.
Humble, honestly, would be the one I would bring up. So among budget cards, I think, and this is because like Edge of Autumn and thinking up of like good lines, like figure out what you want to do with a blue on any given turn. And if you have a 2-card hand, right, you blocked with 2 of your cards, you pitch a blue, you swing Edge of Autumn, and then you swing a 2-for-6. The 6 power is now a 7 power. That is an extremely strong line with 2 cards. So 2-for-6s, especially 2-for-6s with relevant on hits, are very, very strong. That's why Enact Vengeance was, I think, by far like the best card in the best attack action in the deck. because it sort of fit that like Edge of Autumn play line so well.
And I have another one I'm curious to your take on, Evan Ning. This one is only because it works with the Ira cost curve with Edge of Autumn. It's similar to Humble, right? And maybe it goes back to my brute ways because I'm always looking at like 2 cost 6 tax, right? But
I do like 2 cost 6 in this deck.
So what do you think about this one for as far as value goes? I brought up Sirens of Safe Harbor. It's 2 costs.
I was thinking the same card actually.
Excellent. All right.
Get that 8 value in there.
That's what I was thinking. Like it's just like you gain 1 life. It's not nothing, No,
I think Sirens, and I think we talked about this when we reviewed High Seas. It is like crazy how strong this card is. Like it is literally power creep, right? Before you got 2 for 6s with like minor additional effects.
Sure.
This is a literal 2 for 7. And with Ira's ability to give a +1 boost, you can make this a 2 for 8. Like, and it also technically blocks 3 because you can block for 2 and then gain a life.
Yeah.
I like Sirens of Safe Harbor quite a lot as sort of like a budget include. And honestly, I could see it even making like the competitive list as well.
Yeah.
Right.
It also works with a lot of the like, what's the attack reaction? Does that work with this one? The Razor's Edge?
Razor Reflex does not work with it.
It's cost of 1 or less.
1 or less. Yeah. Okay.
It also works on
sword and daggers. Yeah.
So it does work on the Edge of Autumn.
Yeah.
So I like Sirens as sort of like a really high value card, and I like Humble because Humble has an on hit that is relevant to certain heroes in the meta. Right. We keep talking about Gravy. If you turn off Gravy's hero power, they can't play allies from the grave anymore. So Humble is a very strong card.
Since we are talking about Gravy and Pirates and they really care, this is a little outside of the cost curve, but what do you think about Blanche? I've seen it against my Prism, so I was like wondering your thoughts on including it, Ira.
I could see it, like if you're having issues, because the thing about Ira, and this is, I think we talked about this before, but I think Ira versus Gravy, especially with this Armory deck, is pretty Ira favored. So Blanche is really good against Gravy. So I wouldn't really consider it if Gravy is the reason you're playing Blanche. Like, I think you should probably focus on some of your worst matchups. That being said, Prism can be tough for Ira, and Blanche is very good into Prism. So if there are a lot of Prisms at your local meta, I'm very sorry to hear that. You have my condolences, and also bring Blanche in. I kind of like that.
Okay. And then my last budget upgrade going along the lines of the Humble is, of course, the go-to I always say, Wreck Havoc. What do you think, Evan? Am I like burning the soup pot now? Am I cooking too hard? What's going on here? Like, I don't hate it because it is still a 2 for 7. They can't play D-Reacts. It's going to surprise. In this meta, there's a lot of D-Reacts, right? And if they happen to Arsenal it, they're kind of screwed, right? So I was just thinking it's cheap. You get it real cheap. What do you think?
I mean, on a budget, maybe. To be completely frank, if you're like on that tight of a budget, I think I would prefer like cut down to size, for instance.
Interesting. Not sure if I'm familiar.
It's if they haven't blocked yet, then they have to discard a card.
Yeah. Also, do note, very good against a Lyath Goldmane because he has 5 intellect.
Oh, very true.
You heard it here first, guys. Go out and buy all copies of this card. It's going to go up in stocks.
I am specking on every cut down to size. The Tunic Counter Gamers will now buy every cut down to size.
No, that's not 100% true. He's totally he's lying. We will not do none of that.
We are the marketplace for cut down to size.
Yeah, I do like sort of 2 for 6s with on hits. Cut down to size is not a great on hit, but it does force cards out of your opponent's hand. So if they have sort of a game plan that requires their full hand, no, they don't. Not anymore. So I don't hate it for that reason. But once again, like this is sort of a budget card I would think about. I would not actually consider it too heavily once you're getting into some of the pricier card.
So pretty much
from a budget standpoint, then what do you feel about Stony Wootenhog?
Not too big of a fan of that.
Even Sorry,
I think. Yeah, like it's a 2 for 8 technically, which is pretty strong. Since we mentioned how much we like sirens,
Yeah.
but I feel like it's not strong enough. Is sort of part of the problem. Like I think the on hits on the other cards are more valuable than the potential
Then
plus
the
one.
pure damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as budgets, you more favored the humble more than any of the other ones that we talked about.
Yeah, I think humble is the best of sort of the lower rare, like rare or less cards with relevant on it we've talked about. If you want to go a bit higher budget, it's a majestic. It's not too expensive, but it does have a bit of a price tag. You can definitely consider a race face. I think a race face is another good one.
Yep. Race face is good.
It's came down in price since this first came out too.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's true. So
Yeah.
that's
So
one I quite like as well, but it
humble,
is a
Sirens of
bit
Safe
higher.
Harbor, race face as far as the upgrades go. And then I guess if we're going to talk about, are we still talking budget?
Well, might as well throw in Amnesia into the ringer just to finish it out. Amnesia is pretty cheap these days. It's not
Amnesia
too relevant nowadays. It's technically relevant against yourself. Hey, there could be a lot of Ira players coming to your armory near you.
It's relevant against Ira. It's relevant against like Prism.
It's relevant against Vincent.
It is relevant against Vincent, which Ning has been tearing through the meta, terrorizing everybody with his Vincent. So I could see Amnesia. Like Amnesia and a race face are kind of like decent. I think a race face is pretty decent in the current meta. It's good against like Earth heroes. It's good against Acilio, for instance, who's quite good. Like Earth and Lightning heroes. So I think that one is like a budget upgrade.
Yeah.
I would consider like even like the competitive version. I could see them running a race phase. Amnesia, to be honest, is more of like a meta call. So if like your local meta is running Prism, is running Vincent,
Look,
you can consider that.
So for all those potential Uzuri players out there, just collect all majestic 2 for 6s. I mean that's really what you have to do, especially when they're cheap, because once they're meta relevant, then they become expensive.
Yeah.
And then as far as Uzuri goes, you are starved for 2 for 6s that block for 3, even if their on hit effects aren't always so super relevant. So
yeah, a little Uzuri shout out there. So, well, let's talk about the ultimate 2 for 6. And let's say you have the money, you're upgrading your deck. What card do you think I'm about to bring out, guys?
I think you're about to bring up the new KO with Vipox.
Shit.
So true, so true.
What? He was talking about Command and Conquer.
Whoa, ridiculous. Ridiculous.
You can't go wrong with this card, especially in the Ira. Gets past the break point. It's really second chain link. It's a 2 for 7. D-Reacts can't be played. Destroy the cards in the arsenal. Such good value. Yeah, I mean, it's Command and Conquer.
Talked about how powerful Enact Vengeance is.
Yeah.
Like, the reason it's so powerful is because it's like slightly worse Command and Conquer. Like, there are ways where it's better, maybe, but Command and Conquer is Command and Conquer.
Yeah. And then I know you weren't big on this one, so but I'm going to mention it here. I think a budget upgrade that you might be able to play with is Nip at the Heels, right? It's an attack reaction that gives 3 or less base power attack +1. I guess the question I have first is, it's 0 cost, 3 block. Does this trigger with like, let's say Ira's ability brings it to a 4? Would this still work on it?
Yeah, this has base power. Yeah.
Yep. So then it does work along the ways I was thinking. So I was thinking that this is just another way to get +1, but it's also a blue pitch. It's also block 3, and it's a reaction, and it really does help kind of break that cost, especially with all the other +1s you get in your deck, right? If you really want to fish it over.
I don't know. The issue I have, Will, is looking at the current list. Like, what swings for 3 right now?
At that point, I feel like the answer is go with Exposed. if you really want plus
Well,
ones.
expose. Well, don't be too crazy, Ning. Expose doesn't block, and this blocks 3. So
Yeah. But expose can increase the power of enact vengeance to get your Edge of Autumn back.
yeah, I guess that's true.
I guess it is true, but my thought was the block 3 is more important than expose, which is a 0, and there's still a lot of arachnes, a lot of fangs, a lot of syndras out there that do mark you occasionally. Where I think Nip
Yeah.
at the Hills is just blanket, and I guess I'm
I think
valuing.
the best compromise here is concealed blade. Right.
I would prefer concealed blade over nip at the heels. Yes.
It is a +1 on ninja attack action cards, and it blocks for 3, and it costs 0 as well.
Ning was saying something spicy before.
Oh.
Would you like to talk about your plan?
Sure. So, all right. Imagine a world where in your inventory you have 1 Edge of Autumn and you have 2 kodachis, harmonized kodachis. All right. You try to do your okkonor scarraps. It fails. You now have a banished Edge of Autumn and you don't have a weapon. Well, what do? You play Concealed Blade so that you can at least bring back a dagger so you have a weapon. And then you can use it again. And maybe now you're a kodachi Ira,
Pretty spicy. I also had the same thought. The issue, unfortunately, is
then it doesn't work with your vengeances.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, well, like your vengeance hits, and now you can equip an Edge of Autumn, but you don't have like an open slot to equip it.
So I guess to your point, Evan, to go back to why I would play Nip at the Hills, because there are some attacks like the Whirling Mist Blossom that would work with it to bring it up to a breakpoint of 4, right? That's not risking everything for the biscuit. But also, it could bring a breakpoint of a 5, which might be harder. It gets past the D-React if you need it, to use the Scarraps plus the Nip at the Hills. I know now we're talking about Magical Christmas Land. Anytime you have to think about 3 or 4 cards to make a card good. But I think it's another tool that's a blue block 3. That's where I was going at with it. But
I don't hate it in a world where you have the Iris of Blossoms and you also have the Whirling Mist Blade. Though once again, as Ning said, I think Concealed Blade is just better, although it's more expensive. So
it's like
Nip at the Heels is a good alternative.
Is it still that expensive? Probably not.
Last I checked, it was like 15 to 20. So,
oh wow.
Yeah,
maybe it's time to sell my extras. No, but like for Concealed Blade, I know some Fi decks back in the day would run this, not necessarily to bring back daggers, but just because it increases ninja attacks by +1, so you can do that.
I think my main issue is, and I went over it before, like if I think we're replacing blues, I would argue the replacement should be combo cards, because I think Flick Flack is such a strong card. Legitimately, it's so strong of a card. Another consideration you can bring in is other Flick Flacks. Back in the day, I really liked running 2 copies of Blue Flick Flack and Ira, because it blocks for 2 and it gives your next thing you block with +2. So it essentially blocks for 4 in Magical Christmas Land, right?
But because you're using it for a pitch value as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you can also you block a dagger against assassin, and then you block for 5 with a combo card, and that's very strong. But don't bring this in. Definitely bring in more combo cards first.
Yeah.
Because I would argue, and this might be my more mid-ranged Ira brain talking. I would argue that more blue combo cards is probably better than Nip at the Heels and Concealed Blade.
Yeah, I can see that too. Right. So looking at the blue block cards or blue combo cards first, right? Because it just works better with the Flick Flag. And you were saying Flush Fist because it's still a 2 power attack, so it's not. It could be on rate if it's a second chain link or higher, right? Or the second chain link. So, okay.
And we've been talking about a lot of sort of budget upgrades for sort of this more mid-range style, like 2 for 6s, like D-Reacts support. But there are more aggressive cards I would also consider including. Like a big one I really like, I think, is Flex Claws.
Is that more Crouching Tiger?
I wouldn't consider like actual Crouching Tiger support,
Are you
but it
talking
is
red or
like
blue?
red.
Okay.
Yeah. So we talked about how we kind of dislike the 1-for-3 go again. Flex Claws is a 1-for-4 go again, and it has an on hit to create a Crouching Tiger. For those of you who don't know, a Crouching Tiger is sort of a token attack. It swings for 0 with go again, and that sounds kind of bad,
But somebody here has lost to that before.
It was me, yeah. Well, the interesting thing is with Ira's ability, you can spread out your damage in interesting ways with Flex Claws and Crouching Tiger. So if you swing for 4 as your first hit, they say no blocks. You get a Crouching Tiger. It swings for 0, but if you play it as your second attack, with Ira's ability, it's now swinging for 1, right?
And who wants to
spreading
block
out
that?
damage. Well, spreading out damage to make it like more difficult to block is pretty helpful, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why kodachis are so strong. If your opponent's at 1 life and you swing for 1, they have to block with a 3 block from hand. That's pretty good. So I'm a big fan of Flex Claws. I think overall, just any 0 or 1-for-4 go again should be considered over some of these cards if you want to run this more aggressively.
So what other cards would you upgrade or think about upgrading?
I think that's the big one. I think other upgrades you can at the very least consider. I think Pouncing Paws in the boot slot I think is pretty good. Snapdragon Scalers is a very strong card, but Pouncing Paws has block value, which is very powerful for sort of mid-range decks. Yeah, Battle Worn is very good, and swinging for like creating a Crouching Tiger seems really bad, but like once again, you can spread out your damage. You can swing for 1 as the second chain, or for instance, if you have a 0-for-4 in your hand and that's the only card, you can sack this swing for 0 and then swing for 5. So you can potentially get like a +1 power. So I like Pouncing Paws a lot.
You think that's worth more than having emergency snapdragons to
I could see both
give your
being
vengeance
good.
go again? Yeah,
because blocking is very powerful, so I could definitely see, because I think current Ira lists are running Pouncing Paws.
Sure. But that's overall a different game plan, right? Theoretically.
Yeah, but it's sort of I think like there's enough there that I would argue that like if you want blocking equipment, if you want more blocking equipment, I think that's the next spot I would go to.
Gotcha.
I guess talking about boots, Tide Flippers is a pretty obvious include. Arcane Barrier is kind of important, and Tide Flippers is sort of the best Arcane Barrier equipment that Ninja has access to. So if you need AB1 against like Runeblade, for instance, I would definitely bring in Tide Flippers.
All right. Now, this might be a little off topic, but I'm going to say if you're going mid-range Ira, would he ever consider maybe I should get out the kitchen right now, guys, but would you ever consider this card right here, Quick Dodge Flexors? It's a generic equipment card. You got enough blue to make it really count, and it's a defensive reaction, so really helps out with certain matchups.
No, you're acting like this is really crazy include, but this was in my Ira deck.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It's just a bajillion dollars right now, right?
It's kind of expensive. Like if we're going into more expensive cards, I think Quick Dodge is a good one for sort of more mid-range to controlling Ira decks. If you're thinking of like a more aggressive Ira deck, just ignore it.
Yeah. Well, we're talking like, when I first saw the Ira Armory deck, I was thinking mid-range, defensive. And so I was thinking, potential upgrades that cost money. You got trade value. Quick Dodge might not be bad for some of those matchups where you really need to defend more.
Yeah, Ira equipment doesn't block too particularly well, including like the boot slot. Like the Pouncing Paws is like the best blocking equipment you have access to. So I like Quick Dodge a lot for like more aggressive decks. Yeah. I think that is a good include once again for the mid-range decks.
Okay. Well, I feel pretty good. I feel like Ira's calling my name. It's saying, "Will, pick me up."
Okay, then Will. Those long lines. If we're getting to more expensive legendary equipment, put Tunic on screen. I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, that's our
I get it.
signature, isn't it?
All right, this one? No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, that one definitely.
We can talk about the.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, so now you can get yourself a Tunic, and you can
Count
miss
up to 1,
miss
2, and 3.
Tunic counters with
Mhm.
us.
Yeah.
And that'll be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then of course, if you go more mid-range and you're less on the, Whirling Mist Blossom, you already said it, but Mask of Momentum is probably the quickest pickup you should do. It is a good card, even though, like, I was going devil's advocate when I was saying, oh, you want the other one, but this is the better mask, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you always
Iris
threatening
is
the
a
on-hit draw.
Iris is a good budget alternative, but
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
kind of the way you want to go. I think along those lines, if we're talking about, and we can go back to budget because it's technically budget.
Okay.
I think including a copy of Salt the Wound and a copy of Mask of the Pouncing Lynx seems pretty good. I think in games that you're required to be more aggro, Mask of the Pouncing Lynx is probably better. And yeah, unfortunately, Mask of the Pouncing Lynx, I think in this deck doesn't have that great of a target.
Yeah.
So if you're being aggressive, I think Salt the Wound is kind of the best target for Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. So adding those two in is pretty good. Both are also pretty cheap. So aggro players rejoice.
And yeah, I think Salt the Moon, I remember, and it's a common card, so it really is a very cheap alternative,
Ira's also on the art, so,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't include this with her, but I guess that kind of makes sense because it's, it doesn't really
it's not
go with
great
the
mid-range version. So.
Yeah, you want that in super aggro.
And what do you consider tenacity in the same? It's a little bit of an upgrade, but it's
if you're going like super aggro, you probably include one salt, one tenacity,
just to see what the situation is like.
Yeah, but I'm talking like super aggro. I think at the moment, unless you're doing super aggro, I would not even consider tenacity.
Fair enough. All right, I guess that'll bring us back to the. Anything else you guys want to talk about as far as upgrades go?
No.
Or I'm sorry, upgrades in general?
No, I think that's about it. I think we get the full gambit.
Yeah. And for our listeners, if you have a thought or a comment below what you would include in your Ira, go ahead and comment that down below. I'm curious to what the community at large is thinking about when it comes to how they're going to play their Ira, how they're going to upgrade it. So moving on to the next session, we always talk about the myth section, and honestly, we're talking about Armory Deck. I like to keep the themes going. I feel like we answered a lot of this, but myth, Edge of Autumn isn't good enough compared to the Kodachi.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the whole point of this Armory deck is to make Edge of Autumn good enough, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, again, to our whole point, is it good enough to compete very competitively? Probably not, but at least it's good enough to run an Armory. And then maybe slightly more if you play that well.
Yeah. So that's 2 Tunic Counter Gamers that says probably not good enough to run to a Battle Harden or a Calling, where me and I have no ninja experience whatsoever until I'm going to pick up this deck. I think it has enough spiciness to kind of kind of.
I mean, you can play it at. You can play it at. People play Betsy at Callings. I think it's better than Betsy.
well, there you go, audience. Yeah. All right, second myth. Whirling Mist Blossom is a trap card. I don't think so. I think it's actually very feasible in the new Ira Armory deck.
How do we tell him, Ning?
Against Prism and or Gravy Bones, maybe not the worst pick. Against most other people that can generally block.
Here's the funny thing, though, Ning, because we were talking about this earlier. Prism can technically... She can tutor a Figment that deals 1 arcane, and she can target herself, which will kill the ally and end your turn.
Yeah.
So
that I mentioned that when I learned lessons last week.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily end your turn, unless
it
you're playing
would.
as the
If somebody
literal
was
last
attacking your ally and you
Yeah.
killed the ally in response, the turn ends.
Yeah, because your
card.
attack
Oh,
never
because it
finishes.
warded it.
Because
I
the
see.
go
I see.
again
It's
would not
basically
result.
a Spectra, or it's being
Yes.
treated kind of
Yeah.
a Spectra.
So
I see.
I think
You know.
Mist Blossom is good against allies, except
Mhm.
Prism, and there are only 2 heroes with allies, and it's bad against one of them.
Hey, well, here's the answer. Don't tutor for it if the Ravages one is out, and then also, play it towards the end, and maybe they'll shoot themselves.
They can tutor it at any point with the Halo.
Yeah, Halo Illumination is how they get it.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
so
then, yeah.
you're still saying it is a trap. Be
I think
careful.
it's better than it's ever been,
Okay.
but I think it's still a trap.
I do think the deck fixes this though with better setup and card draw though. I mean
I think
personally,
it functions the same, which is if it comes out, you block it. So at least it's still eating up a card.
Yeah,
Worst
but
case.
Mask of Momentum was doing the same thing, and that was every single turn, and that that means you don't have to play 1 for 2 go agains, because Flesh and Blood is, let's be real, it's a numbers game. And if you're swinging a 1 for 2 go again, and that's your power card, and it doesn't hit to give you the 2 extra card draw, then your power card has become like a worse version of Yellow Head Jab, and that's really really weak. So I think like for budget players, like I think keep it in. Like it's good with Iris of the Blossoms. It's very good against Gravy. And sometimes you will blow somebody out because you had the Razor Reflex. But for more enfranchised players, I would personally just stick to threatening with Mask of Momentum triggers.
So I mean, let's see if our audience has a bigger pull to one way or another. I'm curious. Comments down below again. But any final thoughts before we wrap up this cast? We've been going on for a while now. A lot of deep diving into the Armory deck.
Well,
hopefully our Aria players love it. So
I think it seems fun.
Too bad for you, because we're not ending it just now, because you forgot an entire section.
Oh, really? What's the section? I forgot.
We got to talk about cuts.
Okay, well let's go ahead and talk about cuts. What would
We'll be quick about this one.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Shoot, I'm here for a
because
good time, not a long and a long time, I guess.
That's really awesome, Will. I'm glad you're here for both.
Yeah.
I'm very, very proud of you. But I think we alluded to some of the cuts. I think Give and Take is a bad card in this deck, and that should be one of your first cuts.
Oh, a poor combo.
I don't really like Soul Bead Strike.
I was about to say, I think Soul Bead is not great, and even Torrent of Tempo and Snatch aren't great.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I think those 3 cards get a lot better if you play the more go again oriented deck. So if you're playing more aggro, the current build is more mid range focused. So because of that, I think those 3 cards probably get cut for other 2 for 6s. Honestly.
I can see a life where the Soul Beat Strike and Torrent Tempo does stick in a little bit, only because it's the 4 goes to a 5 or the 5 goes to a 6, and it's really low cost. So it fits within your cost curve. But that's like you were saying, Evan. You're kind of going away from the mid range and going more toward aggro focus. And if that's the same thing, then Well,
we talked about how the curve is at its best when it's you play a single blue pitch card and then you use every resource, and Soul Bead Strike is really bad at that. Torrent of Tempo is a very strong card in like the Kodachi build. It's a bit weaker here. And then if you take too many, I'll be cautious. If you take too many of these 0 and 1 cost cards out, you might also have to take out Razor Reflex. So there is sort of a balance there. But so at the moment, I'd say let's take out Soul Bead, because I do think Soul Bead is weak. Yeah. Although Torrent of Tempo is still decently strong. So I think let's keep it out. And it fits decently well with the cost curve.
And you already said you want to replace some of these blue cards with more blue combo cards. I would have taken out Flying Kick from the get-go for that change personally, but
I like Flying Kick. I think Flying Kick's one of the better blues, just because if you're required to play a blue,
2 for 5, right?
2 for 5 is pretty good.
Yeah, but you have other better 2 for 5s though. Like,
but it's a blue 2 for 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
And blocks 3.
Yeah, if you have a hand of like blue cards, Flying Kick is not too bad, right? If I were to take one card, a blue out, it would be the energy potion, and then it would be probably Soul Bead Strike as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think a blue Soul Bead Strike is kind of a mid card.
Yeah. I figured when you took out the red Soul Bead, you take out the blue as well. All right, because you really need that blue.
Yeah, I'd probably add in some more combo cards there. So just any sort of blue combo cards. Or if you want to be spicy with Will, you can add in Nip in the Heels. Or if you want to be spicy, even spicier with Ning, and also, have the money for them, you can add in Concealed Blade.
Yeah. Well, Nip in the Heels, I think, would go, like, if you take out a few of these cards, like, I don't know, I might try the Give and Take just to see how I like it. I'm not saying it's going to be good, all right? But the Nip in the Heels will go with Give and Take with the Snatch, Soul Bead Strike, Torrent Tempos.
Well, it doesn't buff Snatch and Soul Bead, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's 3 and below. It's 3 and below.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. No. Wrong card. Guys, I apologize. All right. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So ignore that. I should probably edit that out. I'm just joking. We keep it in. So, all right. So once again, take out the Soul Beads, both in red and blue. Take out the Give and Takes. Take out the Energy Potion. Snatch, leave in or take out? And then let's talk about Scar for Scar.
It's not my favorite. Like, once again, it's a good finisher. If you're going the sort of go again route, I kind of like it. If you're going the 2 for 6 route, yeah, maybe take it out.
Okay. And then Scar for Scar?
Scar for Scar, I like. Like, it's a 0 for 4 go again. Like, mid-range decks, often enough, sort of, you're trading blows, so you will be below your opponent. So 0 for 4 go again is quite strong.
And how about red Flying Kick?
Is that 2/4/7?
Honestly, red Flying Kick I'm not too big of a fan of in this deck specifically, because without kodachis, there's no easy way to get the second chain link.
Right.
I could see you taking that out for like a 2 for 6, honestly.
Yeah. So Flying Kick, and then I guess that goes back to still
the blue one I still like though, but that's just because it's blue, right? Though if you want to replace it with like a blue combo card, I would not be too disappointed.
Yeah. And Sink Belows, keep Sink Belows in, or would he trade that out for one of those power cards like Shelter from the Storm?
No, Sink Below's still good.
Yeah, I think
Flick Flack's still good.
Yeah, those 2 D-Reacts alone, I think, is pretty good for what you need.
I guess a card I did forget that you can add, and this is more of a sideboard card, is Wax On. So Wax On's a pretty good card. So if you got copies of that, it's pretty cheap.
Let me see what Wax On does. I gotta be honest, I'm not very familiar with it. I know I gave Ning back to his when people were borrowing it, so
it's essentially like a 0 for 5 block, but it only works as a 5 block against 0 cost.
Yeah, it works best against assassins and potentially ninjas, I guess.
Yeah, so against other aggro decks, right?
With zeros,
with a lot of zeros.
I'm sure it was pretty decent. It was probably decent against. Oh no, I was gonna say it was decent against Aurora, but I don't think that's the case.
No, it was pretty good against Aurora.
Yeah, but I mean, don't like
Wax
you
Off,
do
just Wax On then?
Like Wax Off was good against Viscerai, but there's no more Viscerai. So
bring back Wax Off against Syndra. No more dagger flicks, no more one pokes. Easy.
Okay. So Wax Ons you're thinking of?
Don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, Wax On I think is very good. But yeah. So there you go. Those are the cuts. Those are some of the additions.
All right. And yeah, I mean, if you have a deck list, we'll go ahead and put it in the comments below or whatnot. We'll stick it to our description, so you guys can feel free to click on that and see what we think. Evan, I didn't tell you but if you give me your list, that'd be great. All right.
That's the one he was going to take to the calling. You're going to expose him out, golly.
Oh man, but it's for our audience.
For a good cause.
All right. So anyway, any more final thoughts?
If you all like, comment, and subscribe, I'll give you my list.
I'll snap.
That's a browbeat them into it. I love it. All right. Any final comments before we wrap this up?
No, I mean, again, overall, seems like a really fun armory deck.
Yeah. So, I mean, what do you think? Thumbs up on this armory deck? Is that what we're saying?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, Max Nitro was a miss for me. Right, I'm not going to lie. I got the Armory deck. I like to support that, but it just overall felt like a, kind of like a dud. But it did introduce some fun mechanics. But I feel like the Ira Armory deck is more along the lines of a KO and Yar. I mentioned that before. It offers a pretty robust playstyle. It, gets you into the game competitively, and I think it really does do what it set out to do, which is, sharpen the ninja strike. Ha! Anyways, that being said, you know, remember, every turn is a decision. Every decision is a story. And don't forget your damn Tunic counter. My Discord handle is midnight_WI11. Until next time.
Okay, see you.